Hi, guys.
Heyo.
This is the Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery Podcast.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Megan.
Hey.
And we are here to tell a story for you.
We're here. I just watched Horton Hears a Who with Olive, and she loved it. But they're like, we're here.
Oh, gosh, you guys, you should see Olive. She's gotten so big.
She's gotten so big, and I texted Megan yesterday, and I was like, Olive asked what a butterfly was, and I was like, oh, it's a butterfly. And she said, oh, a fluff. Like, okay, Mom, that's a fluff. That's a fluff.
Is that the cutest thing you've ever heard? Ella used to call them butter pies.
Oh my gosh. Soph used to call mosquitoes scamitos.
Oh,
That's
great.
I know.
Cutest thing.
Scamitos.
Can we petition anywhere to have that be a thing?
I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're very powerful.
We're really good with words, so that would help out a lot.
Anything goes here.
Yes.
Okay. I have a story.
Yeah, what you got for me?
This one was sent to us by Karina
Okay.
on Instagram.
Hey, Karina.
Hi, Karina. And I figured it had been entirely too long since I've done a witch episode.
Ooh, yeah.
So today we're talking about a Connecticut witch named Mercy Disbrow.
Mm.
But first,
I'm really proud of you for that last name.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was Disbrow until this morning.
Oh.
And then I read it a different way. And now I think Disbrow is the right Disbrow.
Oh,
Disbrow.
Yeah.
Because it was spelled
Like the Tale of
differently.
Disbrow.
Sort of.
But it's not at all.
But before we get into her story specifically, I'm going to give a little bit of a history about the witch trials in Connecticut.
Okay.
Okay. So a lot of the time when we think of witch trials in America, we automatically go to Salem.
Salem, for
obviously.
sure, yeah.
The thing that makes Salem so famous and such an anomaly is how it all happened at once.
Mm-hmm.
19 people were convicted of witchcraft and put to death, all in a matter of months.
Yeah.
But long before the Salem trials, there was a similar fear of witchcraft taking hold in colonial Connecticut.
Okay.
The first person executed for being a witch in America was Alice Young of Windsor, Connecticut in 1647, 45 years before the Salem witch trials.
So crazy.
There's no trial records, but historians think that what happened for her is that the flu or some other illness kind of swept through where she was living.
Yeah.
And Alice became the scapegoat.
They're like, well, she
Yeah.
is supernatural.
I mean,
She has a great immune system.
like, people needed a reason for anything bad that had happened. I mean, that's where so many, a whole lot of folklore and everything comes from, is like, we have, like, in the absence
We
of
need
science
something as
and
an excuse. Yeah.
knowledge that we had at the time, they come up with a supernatural reason. And then suddenly you don't like this woman and now she's a witch. So once the talk of witchcraft started, it became just the answer for everything.
Right.
If there's something wrong in our town, there must be the devil at work. It must be witchcraft. And we have to rid our town of witches, which is now you're on a witch hunt. So some of the grounds for suspicion of a witch included having unusual body marks, which they called witch marks.
God, we would be burned at this stage.
I'd be in so much trouble. Having an argument with someone who would then later accuse you of witchcraft.
Oh
So
my
if you were
gosh.
just like a,
Outspoken.
argumentative
anything,
person. Having a child, servant, or friend who was a convicted witch, or the testimony of a convicted witch. So all of those things.
Really anything in general
Yeah.
is going to get you marked as a witch.
It's really scary how easily it was,
Yeah.
you could be accused.
Yeah.
Some of the major witchcraft trials that happened in Connecticut were the Hartford Witch Panic in 1662 and 63, Catherine Harrison of Wethersfield in 1668,
Oh, yeah.
and then Mercy Disbrow in Fairfield in 1692. So in Hartford, the panic began when a group of young girls claimed that they were being tormented, and an 8-year-old named Elizabeth Kelly even died after she said a woman was choking her.
Oh.
Now, she had already been ill, and this actually led to the girl's body being subject to what is thought to be the first autopsy in Connecticut.
Oh.
And all it said was officials found her body to be not normal. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Why?
I don't know. But a lot of the stories that came out during these Hartford witches, they were just weird. Like one woman said that a devil caused her to speak with a Dutch accent.
Stop it. That's fun.
It's like, what evil thing did the devil do to you? He made me speak with a Dutch accent.
How dare he?
But I'm also just imagining this woman suddenly speaking with Dutch accent, like
Stop
just for
it.
fun.
I can't even do that, but that's amazing.
It's just like how when you're a little kid and you suddenly are like, look, I'm from I'm British. And you're like, what are you doing?
Why? It's like Ava, my niece, always used to ask when she would watch Peppa the Pig religiously.
Oh, yes.
It would be like, when are we going on holiday? And we would be like, Ava.
Stop it.
Stop it.
Another said that she had seen her neighbors turn into large black dogs. And several claimed to have seen witches dancing with the devil in the woods at night. We know what was going on. We've discussed what was going on in the woods.
Oh, whoa.
12 people were accused of witchcraft in 1662 and 63, and 4, Nathaniel and Rebecca Greensmith, Mary Barnes, and Mary Sanford, were hanged. Now, after this, colonial governor John Winthrop Jr. questioned the validity of the evidence that had been presented at the witch trials, which is amazing.
Yeah.
He's like,
wait a second, guys.
Yeah, he was like,
something seems off here.
I feel like this evidence is a little questionable.
It's questionable.
And he also brought up the possibility that maybe some of these witnesses had agendas.
What?
Like,
imagine.
Amazing. So then he established more objective criteria for witch trials. He required that there be at least 2 witnesses for each alleged act of witchcraft. And in some cases, he personally got involved and he overturned or reversed verdicts. So he seemed very forward thinking. And like, he's not dismissing the idea of witchcraft completely, but he is saying, like,
let's take a deeper look.
This shouldn't be so easy to do.
Yeah.
So now on to the Wethersfield case. That one was Catherine Harrison. She was accused of witchcraft. She was a widow, and her neighbors did not care for her. She was described as having a sharp tongue.
Ooh.
She was accused of destroying their crops and maiming their livestock. And she was convicted in 1668, but then her conviction was overturned. And she went free, and she was like, deuces, I'm going to New York.
Because I can be a new man.
I will not stay in New York. I can be a new man.
Whoa, man.
After this, we have a period where most witchcraft trials in Connecticut ended in acquittals. So that leads me to the one that I'm going to tell you about today, the trial of Mercy Disbrow.
Okay.
So let's tell you who she is first. In 1620, the Mayflower landed in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
What?
18 years later, Mercy Holbridge, which was her unmarried name, was born. Her dad was Arthur Holbridge, and he was one of 68 men who founded the church in New Haven.
Okay.
Her mother was Susanna, and either no one cares about her last name because she's a woman, or she's like Madonna or Beyonce. There's no last name needed.
That's fine.
Suzanne.
She's the one.
Okay, so when you look through the colony's early records, you see Arthur's name mentioned a lot, and not really for great reasons.
Oh, fun.
He was often reprimanded and fined for behavior considered less than meritorious. He wasn't like an upstanding citizen.
Right.
He passed away when Mercy was 10 or 11 years old.
Okay.
And then Mercy was baptized into the Church of New Haven on June 30th, 1650. When Arthur died, this left Susanna a widow, and as such, it was considered the community's responsibility to take care of her and her daughter. We've talked about this before in another New England Witch episode where they were talking about how like these people were could be seen as like a drain on the community money
like
because, now we got to take care of her. So how can we get rid of her?
Yeah.
Right? You'll see Susanna's name in the early colony records too. Again, no last name, as she receives like community support. That stops around 1658 when she remarries, this time to a Reverend John Jones, who is much, much, much older than she is.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, this was more of a marriage of convenience rather than romance. The Reverend was old and needed someone to take care of him, and Susanna needed the financial assistance and security that came with having a husband.
Yeah.
And it would have been frowned upon for an unmarried woman to simply move in with the Reverend to care for him.
How dare she think about doing that?
Right. And I just love that it's like, it's frowned upon for you to move in with him and take care of him, but not
it's
frowned
not
upon to have like a fake marriage.
Yeah, because of his money.
Right. That's okay.
It's fine.
Because it's all about appearances.
As long as you're making the community look good.
Ugh. At this point, Mercy is about 21, and she has a younger brother named John, who's like 19. And this is when the family relocates to Fairfield, Connecticut. It was a colony then, not a state. An important thing to know here is at that time, Connecticut considered witchcraft to be one of 12 crimes that were eligible for the death penalty. Now, the Hartford Panic and the Wethersfield trial that I told you about, those are like in the 1660s, right? And we are, and we're coming up in the by the time we go to trial for Mercy, it's 1692, which is also the same time period as the Salem witch trials. But it's just, my point is like this witchcraft history has been going on for a while in Connecticut. In 1670, Mercy married John Nichols Jr. They had 2 sons, and then John died in the King Philip War in 1676. Something looked weird over here. Okay, it's fine. I was worried it was doing that buzzing thing again. Mercy married again 3 years later to a man named Thomas Disbrow. There's the name. And they had a son as well. So, in April 1692, 17-year-old Catherine Branch started. She began acting strangely. She was having fits of crying and fits of laughing. I mean,
we do that often.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's fine. That's just life.
Yeah.
Her body would contort into these really rigid positions. And she was seeing things that weren't there. Something wasn't right.
Oh, something's going on.
And it was 1692, so the clear answer is witchcraft.
Witches, yeah.
In May, Catherine named 2 women as witches who were tormenting her.
Oh.
Elizabeth Clausen and Mercy Disbrow.
Wow.
Disbrow. One or the other.
Yep.
These 2 women are brought to the courthouse, and as soon as Catherine sees them, she falls to the floor, unconscious. She just passes out. When she came to, she again accused Elizabeth and Mercy of being witches.
Oh my God.
Wishes. She was like, "You're a wish," and you're like, "Oh, thank you.
You wished for
me." When she came to, she again accused Elizabeth and Mercy of being witches. Now, at this point, Mercy's in her mid-50s. She and Elizabeth are put in jail, and an investigation begins.
Oh my gosh.
Over 200 depositions are taken from Mercy and Elizabeth's neighbors, filled with stories about how these 2 women are involved in all sorts of occult and satanic things. 200 depositions. The only thing I could find about Mercy that talked about her personality was that she was like outspoken, kind of argumentative. But I mean, I guess you can guess that she would have been.
Yeah.
So at this point, Mercy is determined to prove her innocence, and she's like, "Look, give me the water test."
Oh.
Now, we talked about this with Grace Sherwood and I think a few others. The water test is the accused witch is tied up and thrown into the water. If she sinks, she's not a witch. She's also dead, but at least she's not a witch.
Right.
If she floats, she's a witch. So either way,
she's done for.
You're screwed. The idea behind the test is that water is holy. So if you float, the water is like rejecting you. Obviously. On September 15th, 1692, Mercy's given the water test. They tie her up and they throw her into Edwards Pond in the middle of Fairfield. By the way, the area where Edwards Pond used to be has been purposefully maintained as a way to remind future generations of what Mercy and Elizabeth went through. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. Mercy floated.
Oh yeah.
Proving her guilt.
Yeah, because she's a witch.
There's absolutely no other explanation.
It's like when you sit down in the bathtub and your legs float up and you're like, "Well,
yeah, I know." They did all the other usual things to confirm this, including several examinations of Mercy and Elizabeth's naked bodies, looking for marks that proved the women were witches.
Right.
And examiners stated that they did find witch marks on both women.
Oh, they sure did. I bet they did. Yeah.
Elizabeth went to trial and was found not guilty. However, on October 28th, 1692, Mercy was sentenced to death by hanging.
Okay.
I have no idea why Elizabeth was found not guilty.
Yeah.
And Mercy was found guilty. But I think with so many of these trials, it's like,
they're just real choosy.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah. They're just like, meh.
But
I pick you today.
This was months after the Salem witch trials had ended, and people had kind of grown weary of the whole thing. We talked about how the insanity of what happened in Salem kind of made people take a step back and be like, are we doing the right thing?
I don't know that this is what we were supposed to do.
Who's the bad guys here?
Yeah.
Mercy ended up not being executed after all. A panel of ministers overturned her conviction, stating that the water test, Kara, had no legal standing.
Wait, what? But I thought...
That's just not science.
What?
Now, I should point out that even though...
That water wasn't holy enough.
Even though it had no legal standing, like the general public still totally took it as like absolute fact. You know?
It's Bible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The panel also said that a physician should be the one to determine exactly what a witch mark is, which is also makes sense. Like, is that a birthmark?
Is that a mole?
Or a witch It's a witch mark. You know, it's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the ministers also said that the accuser in Mercy's case was possibly faking her claims.
Oh,
they said,
think so?
Quote, accidents and illness after a quarrel are thin grounds for proving witchcraft.
Oh.
I know.
Whoa.
So this was amazing, particularly forward thinking for the time. They're basically saying we need to take a whole lot more factors into account when a person is accused of witchcraft, emphasizing the need for due process when dealing with a case like this.
Oh.
Mercy stayed in prison for another 6 months.
Oh, my gosh.
And then the General Assembly ordered her to be released in May of 1693. But not put to death. So
yeah,
we can at least be thankful for that.
Yeah, that's true.
From there, she went on to have a pretty normal life. There were, of course, people who still considered her to be guilty.
Why is that necessary, Nicholasville?
Jeez.
So people still wanted to throw stones.
Yes. I'm going to say that part over there because of that truck.
Yeah.
From there, she went on to have a pretty normal life. There were, of course, people who still considered her to be guilty, and they would spread rumors about her. But then there were also people who came to her defense, talking not just about her, but also about the witch trials as a whole and how, maybe
just absurd
they're a little
they
problematic.
Were. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with the story that you told about Philip and Mary English, where they were able to leave town and then come back after everybody came to their senses.
Right.
And it's like, okay. But you were so convinced they were witches before.
Yeah. Yeah. You stole all their stuff.
We don't know exactly when Mercy died, just that it was sometime before June 4th of 1718, because there's a document with that date that refers to her as deceased.
Oh, okay.
So I just think it's really interesting how just there's this craze of witch trials that kind of built up and then died down all around the same time.
Yeah.
And one of the articles I read talked about part of the reasoning for what kind of brought them to an end was the advancements made in medical practices and the fact that people were becoming more educated.
Yeah.
Because now they have more.
Yeah.
They don't have to explain everything by being like, it's the devil.
Right. Exactly. They're like, oh, hey, wait, there's some science behind this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you can't help what you don't know, right? Like your ability to understand something is only as big as your perception of things around you. And so they had no idea about mental illness or anything like that, right? Like
they didn't until not long ago.
I know. I mean, I think that we've talked about witch trials even in the 40s over Nellie, I can't remember her name. The woman who she faked being a psychic and had those crazy pictures.
Yes.
That's an episode somewhere back in the day. But another factor is the influx of immigrants that came to America in the 1700s.
Yeah.
Because they brought their knowledge with them, but they also brought all of their
views.
religions, which gave so many more explanations for things. And I think in some ways may have made witchcraft itself more acceptable.
Right.
It kind of showed you another side of it. But also people had another option than the Puritan way of thinking.
Right. So how dare you?
Right. You could, not everything was the devil.
Yeah.
So I just think when you take a step back to look at the rise and fall of, and it's a lot. It's too many, no matter how many people were put to death, obviously. But as far as in America, it's kind of a short period of time that we dealt with it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's so crazy.
I'm just glad people became more educated.
Right, exactly.
Quickly.
They probably were like, oh, we're going to this new land. We got to send a doctor with you because who knows what's going to happen if people are on their own.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, when you think about the whole thing of they just didn't know any better, you can understand why they turned to religion. Yeah. Because it was the oldest book there was, I guess. It's the main source of information in the town. It's the only thing everything was based in back then.
So let's follow this. And if you're any different than what it says, then you must be following the devil instead.
There's the natural human thing to fear whatever's different. So. And then you had people who confessed. That's the other thing, is there are people who are like, yes, I'm a witch. For one reason or another, they would confess to it.
Right.
Either because they were mentally ill themselves, or because they thought maybe
it's going to make it easier for them. Yeah.
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 if that would confess.
Yeah.
Or they're just difficult.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say too. They're probably just like, well, if making my own soap and growing my own plants and making my own medicine makes me a witch, I'm a witch.
Right. Yeah.
If that's the title of it, then that's what I am.
Isn't it wild? There have always been people who've like lived outside the norm.
Yeah.
You know? And I think people are still in certain places punished for that.
I was going to say it's still not always accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it, you guys.
A little food for thought.
Yeah. I just love having discussions about this kind of thing. I just think, I don't know. I love the witch stories.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that Mercy ended up
Surviving. Yeah.
And that it also shows you again, I know I said it already, but like Salem, even though it's super famous, it really was
right.
not the norm.
Yeah.
And even after Salem, because it was so crazy, they had that like moment of like, maybe we should
Let's
stop.
just think about it for a minute.
And they halted the whole thing because there were more trials that were supposed to happen, and they ended up just stopping all of it.
Yeah.
And it seems like Connecticut just had that moment a little sooner.
Yeah. That wait.
Yeah, like something else needs to come here, and maybe all because of that governor who was just kind of forward thinking and progressive at the time.
Yeah.
Smart enough to realize that like maybe we should.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with any of this.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Thank you all so much for listening.
Yeah.
We love you
so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.